Broken Meeple. I'm your host Luke Hector, and this is a rather impromptu video that I'm doing because of the unit behind me and the current focus on various podcasts lately. I was listening to the Dice Tower with Tom Vassell and Eric Summerer, and they specifically were thinking about storage of board games, and this particular unit behind me came up in conversation. As soon as that happened, the Twitter accounts started flooding with people saying, "Oh, I heard about this on there," and "Oh, Luke, you had one of these, don't you?" and "Oh, what do you think of it? You know, strokey chin." And I thought it was about time I actually got the video review of this up. It'd been on my mind for a while, but now's a good time, really, I suppose. So I'm just going to go into what I think of the unit and how it fits with the games I've got and what possible games you've got. And I'll also then, later on in the video, going to discuss a few little tips with regarding to constructing the thing and assembling it all together. So first off, let's have a look. First of all, it's called the IKEA Expedit. E-X-P-E-D-I-T. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely certain on that, but it doesn't really matter. Now, in terms of dimensions, as you can see, I don't live in the largest flat in the world, so it had to go into whatever space I could find, and there's still space around the top and the sides you might be able to see, but in general, dimension-wise, it measures 185 centimetres across the top, 185 centimetres from the top to down, and the depth of each shelf is 39 centimetres. Now, you'll probably have a little bit of extra centimetre depth because most of you won't want to put this flat bang against the wall, so you'll probably get another 1 or 2 centimetres out of that. In terms of the shelves themselves, basically how it's done is one big grid system. So it comes with all these dividing walls and these unleashed long shelves that separate out all the various compartments. They're all of equal length, so there's no discrepancies with each of them. And this particular one I've got has 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So it's got 25 compartments. You can buy this in a 4x4. I don't think you can do it in a 3x3 to my knowledge, and I don't think it goes any bigger than 5x5 unless you combine it with other things. 5x5 is pretty good though. As you can see, it's holding quite a few games in there. You know, my collection is not as large as various other people's, but it's my resolution for this year is to get this packed up with board games, so I'm working on it. But it seems to be doing the job for me quite nicely. Now, you might have noticed that one of these dividers is missing. That was done on purpose, and I'll get into that later in the video. So, starters, in terms of what board games we've got. Well, let's take an example. Eldritch Horror. This is the standard size board game box that you tend to get. Nice, square, in that sort of length. In terms of how it fits on the shelf, if I take out Cosmic Encounter for just 1 second, of course, everyone. Sits in there. Now, if I put it literally right up to the front facing, you have a good sort of 5 to 6 centimetres at the back of the box before you even fall off the shelf. So this can push all the way up to the wall, quite a fair distance as you might be able to see, and essentially it does a good job on that front. Now, in terms of stacking them up on top of each other, well, let's return Cosmic Encounter to the shelf. And let's borrow Small World. Here we go, Small World there, and Small World Underground. So as you can see, 4 of these standard square boxes can fit in each compartment easily with room to spare at the back, so you could always push them a little bit further in, and then if you've got things that stack, a little one like that, you could put some on the front like that. I mean, I'm probably not going to end up with that situation unless I end up with a packet load of board games, but the option is there, and it works quite well. You can see that they are quite spacious, they are good depth, so you might even, for certain longer games, I don't know if I've got an example, maybe this one will do actually, Expedition Famous Explorers, if I pop that in, that fits snugly, so not poking out, all the way in, and it doesn't come off the back of the shelf. So this is a typical example box that's less than 39 centimetres long. You can get that in there, no problem, doesn't even come off the back of the shelf in any way. So you've even got that option, you've got some thin games to store in there. But it does a very good job of holding these. The maximum load you can have on a shelf is 13 kilograms, which is easy. I mean, it holds 4 fairly packed board games. Anybody who knows anything about Cosmic Encounter, Small World or Eldritch Horror, you know there's a bucket load of components in each, and they're quite heavy boxes. Holds 4, no problem, no damage to the shelf, no nothing. Obviously, you're going to have to sort of play around with what games you can get in each particular shelf, and obviously, you've also got the top of the unit as well to fit more stuff. I mean, I've got my poker chips and stuff like that on the top, but eventually very long board games could go on there, no problem. The construction of the thing is that these are fairly finished shelves, roughly around the 2 centimetre mark in thickness, and everything else around the very outside is this huge, very chunky rectangular pieces that basically hold it all together nice and rigid, and it's very stable. You can affix this to the wall, but I don't bother, and to be honest, the only reason you would want to fix this to the wall is if you've got kids who believe that they like to play Spider-Man all over these units and are likely to climb down and basically topple it over. It's unlikely, and to be honest, once you've loaded it up with games, I don't think it's going to have a toppling problem in any way, and it saves a bit of hassle during the construction process. But all in all, a lot of gamers are using this, and they are swearing by it. There are a couple of other varieties. I think the Billy bookcase is quite good as well from IKEA, but I saw this one on various videos now, and I just fell in love with the idea and design of it. Because, I mean, you could categorise various compartments with different games if you're a bit OCD like that, and you can take things out to have longer boxes, and you might have noticed the basket. Yep. One of these. Now, this particular unit, cost-wise, £140 for this one, so I don't know how much that would be in US dollars, but I know you can get this in the US, and you can get this in the UK as well. It's £140 in UK sterling, and these baskets are £15 each. Now, I know that seems a little bit expensive for a basket, but hear me out. Firstly, you might have noticed, it goes in there snugly. They have little sort of kind of like foam or rubber rollers on the bottom, so they slide in, they don't damage the shelf. They fit in with a little room to spare, and they hold, sorry for the chingling, I use them to hold little ramekins and things like that for storing tokens, and it's kind of like my spares box. I mean, I got some spare Cosmic Encounter bits and bobs in there for when I kindly asked Fantasy Flight Games for some missing planets that I had, and they were very nice, and they sent me the entire punchboard cutout sheet that had the planets on. So not only did I get my replacement planets, they also basically gave me double the components I ever needed. But I also use this to keep other things I need, like spare tokens that I've taken out of Euro games that I've pimped out with better ones. The dividers for Plano boxes that I haven't used yet, in case I buy more boxes. Spare tokens that I've replaced from pimping out. And these are Ticket to Ride trains that are in their spares in case, because I've got the special wooden versions in there which I prefer. So you can use these to fill up spare shelves, and it doesn't matter where you put them, just put them where you like, really. They work in much the same way. This other basket here. In here I keep a ton of bags for the various components whenever I need them, and I also keep, for collectible card games, I keep these little plastic, I don't know what exactly they're called, the sort of little wallets that if you're going to post cards out, you can just slip 2 in there and it keeps it nice and straight. So they're quite handy. And I get my protectors, Mayday Games premium ones mainly, and I keep my spares in there. So they does the job nicely. I'm going to stick that here now. I can chop and change. Just make sure you put it in the right way around. There we go. And so, generally like that. So, I mean, I really like this unit. It's always got attention from people who have come round. It looks striking. You can get it in black, brown like I've done here, because most of my flat's kind of in that sort of style. But you can get it in white, and I believe you can get it in various sort of weird glossy colours as well. But personally, I think you're either getting this in white or preferably in black, brown. I think black, brown is the most popular of the variety, even though it is slightly more expensive than white. But white just looks cheap. I mean, it is cheaper, but it looks cheap. So, and no obvious blemishes or anything like that. I've got a few things down the very bottom shelf that aren't related to board games, like some spare bits towards CCGs and my laminator and a spare microphone that I keep there just because it's filling up shelves. So I've got some way to get this stacked up with board games, but I am working on it. I've already bought about 4 or 5 games in the last couple of weeks, and I'm looking on to buy some more very soon, so that will hopefully pop up then. But now, that's enough sort of raving about how nice the unit is and see how it sort of features there. I hope this has given you a good overview of that. What you probably want to see now is how to construct it. Now, I haven't got a construction video of me going from stage to stage. I have a few photo stills, but I'm going to give you some tips about constructing the unit itself, so hopefully that will help you along your way. Now, a few things about constructing this unit. Now, I am not a DIY expert by any means. Ask anybody I know. You cannot trust me with a power tool, and even hammers are regarded as a dangerous, lethal object whenever I'm around them. So pretty much I am restricted to screwdrivers and a ruler. If I'm very lucky, a set square, but that's very pointy, so maybe they don't let me near that either. Trust me, I'm very bad at DIY. However, IKEA furniture is where I'm alright with, and this I can put together myself. Now, this is coming from a big DIY amateur, and I can put this together no problem. Granted, I would probably suggest you do it with 2 people, because it speeds the process up a lot. The way it comes in 4 flat pack boxes, fairly heavy and fairly long. I might have a photo to show you in a second. If I do, you'll see it in a minute. But I managed to get this in the car that I own, which is a small Suzuki Swift Sport. And anybody who knows anything about cars knows that that's not a very large car. However, I only just got it in, and it did impair my visibility on the road a little bit on the way back. So I recommend having a slightly bigger car just for a bit more ease, and also if you're travelling with 2 people, you are going to need a bigger car, because I had to pretty much negate any use of the passenger seat when I did mine. Now, it comes in 4 boxes, but generally the parts are mostly the same. You get 4 of these really chunky bits that go around the entire outside in one big square. You get all the dividers, of which there are normally 1, 2, 3, 4 on each row. So I believe, if I'm doing my maths correctly, that's 20 dividers that you will get. And you will also get 4 of these thinner but long shelves, and they go all the way from one side to the other. There's no split or anything like that, it's all one piece. And that's essentially it for the main bulk of the the unit. And the only parts that you need in terms of putting it all together, it comes with most of them anyway, and I guarantee all you need is an Allen key, which comes with anyway, and that's about it really. You don't actually need a hammer or a screwdriver, because it literally is that easy to put together, and I'll explain why. The Allen key is required for these connecting bits here, connecting the thick bits together. They have, I don't know the names of the screws, but they're fairly sort of metallic screws, and you push them in halfway, and then the Allen key is used to twist the screw in. And that keeps that extremely sturdy and extremely strong, and they work an absolute treat. Comes with the Allen key you need, and it's relatively easy to do, although it can be a little bit fiddly if, like me, you assemble this on the floor, because you will be able to sort of turn it, and then you'll have to take it out, put it back in, turn it, take it out, put it back in, turn it. It gets a little bit annoying, but it needs to be done. I say I assembled this on the floor, and I recommend you do so as well, because the way you can do it, put a mat down. I didn't put a mat down because I didn't have one, but I recommend doing it on carpet or on the mat just to not damage it. And essentially what you will do is that you will build it from the top shelf onwards. So imagine this has come down like that, and you put this bit on first, and then you build it row by row by row, and then you get to the thick bit at the very end. You effectively do one top and one side, all the rows, and then bottom thick bit, and that, in that order. Hopefully I've got some still photos to show you a slight progression on that. And with that, most of all this connecting up here is done by those little wooden peg things that you get with most IKEA furniture. If you've ever built anything by IKEA, you know what I mean. They're very thin wooden little pegs, no points, child friendly, and effectively these will have holes in there, and you just literally push the peg in, nice and tight, and then push it in tight, and then as you put each of these rows on, they all stick together. You don't need a screwdriver, and you don't even need a hammer. It says have a hammer in the instruction manual, but trust me, I pushed all of the wooden bits into these things with my bare hands. Did not need a tool of any kind, and it worked a treat. And apart from that, there's no other things you need. The pegs are all basically stuck into these various bits, and you've got the metallic screws for that. And that's all the parts. All the rest of it is just all these wooden bits. Now this is why I suggest doing it with 2 people, however. I built this alone. It took me a little while because it is quite time consuming having to peg up all the dividers and get them in, do row by row by row. Also, you have this slight fiddly problem when you get to the very last bit, because as you go along, it's relatively easy to get it lined up, especially when you're doing these thinner shelves. You know, you can go and it usually lines up where you might get the odd fiddly bit. When you get to the last bit though, you've got this whole thing constructed apart from this one bit that's got to slot into there, 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 and there. And there if you actually have it, but I'll explain later. And that can be quite fiddly by doing it by yourself, because you're trying to bash it in from one side, then suddenly it comes out the other end, you've got to bash it in there, and it comes back out. So trying to line that last piece up by yourself is quite fiddly. It's not bad, and I was able to do it, but it wasn't without a slight element of frustration. So if you've got 2 people, you can have one on one end, one on the other end, and that should do the trick quite nicely. Now, I mentioned the missing divider here. Now, this is the only bit that you might need an extra tool for. Basically, when the pegs are put in, they will protrude out of the thinner shelf, a little bit on the bottom and a little bit on the top. You can't avoid that without some extra help. Now, normally you have to put all these dividers in so it separates out the boards like this. However, if you're one of those people who like the miniature games or does have some fairly lengthy boxes, you're going to have a few things that won't fit easily into these unless you stick them long ways, and even then you might struggle. I'm talking about the really extreme miniature games here. I'm thinking of Warhammer 40k, I believe Horus Heresy has something like that, I think the World of Warcraft board games had that. I think of other examples, maybe Talisman, did that have a large box? I'm not sure. Twilight Imperium 3, that's another huge box. So there's going to be people, basically miniature games, where you've got loads of models and the box is like this long. You know, you wouldn't be able to fit it in lengthways there, but you're going to have to fit it in somehow. Now, what you would do is that you would simply take out one of these dividers as you're constructing it. Not after you've finished, as you're doing it. That's important. Now, granted, yes, you can see the holes on the top of the shelf where you haven't put a peg in, but that's a pretty minor complaint. And to be honest, if you do it on the top shelf, okay, fair enough. If you did it on the bottom shelf, you'd never see the hole anyway, so it's really up to you how you design it. I couldn't really care less about it. It doesn't detract from the look at all. Even the holes on the bottom that you can't see from the camera, but obviously you've got the peg holes there, and you know it's going to be like that because you would basically leave out the peg up to a point. However, they do protrude out. So what you would do is that you just need a little hacksaw, a little budget one. That's all I ever bought. And basically, whatever bit protrudes out, you just saw that bit off so it doesn't protrude out. Now, the reason I say you should do that is because this shelf still, there we go, still remains strong. And it doesn't slide from side to side. If, however, you don't use the peg at all, you are going to have a shelf that is only attached at the bottom and it's going to be wonky. It's just going to go from side to side all the time. And that just looks even worse than a couple of minor holes. So, like I say, get the peg in between this divider and the thin shelf, hacksaw off the top so that it doesn't protrude out there. I mean, if you're really good, you might even be able to get it so it's flush with the hole, but I wasn't really too fussed about being too great with it. And it means that you can have these, and you can design it how you like. I mean, I had this as a double shelf there. I could have then taken up that divider and had a double shelf there. You could just basically tailor this to your heart's content. And that's one of the appeals of it. It's fully customizable, but only when you're constructing it. Once it's built to this stage, trust me, you are not going to want to take this apart and try and make changes. So have a plan of what you're doing before you build it. And if in the long run you've got some longer games and you've run out of space on the shelf, well, like I say, it will fit on the top. So it's job solved in more than one respect. You could even just leave all the dividers in and use the top of the shelf purely for those long games I mentioned, so you don't have to take out any dividers. And I was tempted to do that, but I thought I'd rather have the game sort of on the shelves itself and then use the top purely for these random things like poker chips and that. But that was just my way of thinking. But I don't regret it. It still looks fine either way. The other thing with having 2 people, this thing is quite heavy once it's put together. Not stupidly heavy. However, are you really going to take a chance with this? It's recommended you build it on the floor. So at the moment, think of this as face down on the floor. You've built it all together, and now you've got to push it up to the wall and get it in there. Now, by yourself, that is quite a tricky task. You know, I mean, I'm not wishing the boast, but I go to the gym, you can probably see protein packs down there, and, you know, I've got a bit of muscle. But even I did not fancy lifting this entire thing up by myself, hoping I could keep it steady without it sliding all over the place. Nah, you want 2 people with this. One on one side, one on the other side, and then you can just easily push it up and slide it across to the wall. As I say, don't put it straight up to the wall because you'll just damage it. But you can put it like maybe a couple of centimeters, maybe something like that, from the back of the wall, so you've got a little bit of extra space for games to slide in. And obviously it just means that if you did push it or something, you didn't necessarily scrape your wall while you were doing it. But that's essentially the tips for constructing the thing. Apart from that, it is one of the easiest things to construct. It's just a bit time consuming. Again, get 2 people. One person could be on the floor putting the things in, and the other person could be unwrapping all the boxes and sticking all the pegs in these dividers, because you need like 4 in each of these little ones, and I think you need something like 8 or something like that in these long shelves. So it does get quite time consuming. So that would be a sort of recommendation I would make on that. You don't have to get the baskets. They were just on show when I went to IKEA in Southampton, and to be fair, I thought they were quite a nice idea. I knew I had accessories to box up, so I thought I'd buy 2 and see how it goes. I just chop and change whenever I feel like it, so it never sort of appears the same. With smaller board games, you know, you can stack them how you like. I mean, I know it looks a bit sort of haphazard at the moment, but that's because I'm building up the collection. Ideally, you're going to have something like this that can store 4 games, so imagine 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, you know, you're talking 20 games on one row if they're all standard box sizes, so 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. 100 games that you could get if they are standard box sizes on this shelf. Now for me, that is more than enough. I know some of you out there, particularly in the US, have got collections that I could only dream of, but for most people, this will be ideal. And even then, if you use it up, then buy another one. I mean, some of you with major collections obviously don't have one unit to hold all your games. You've got an entire library full of the things, so just buy multiple of them. They look great, and you don't even have to have them up next to the wall. You can use them as a, what's the word, a divider in the room, shall we say. So say that was the wall there, and there was another wall, and I had stuff like a doorway on one side and maybe another doorway on the other. I could put this sort of vertical to the wall, so it sticks out, and you have to walk around it. But then you could see the games from both sides. You'd be able to see the front ends, and you'd be able to see the other side as you're walking around. So it almost, and you could see through, you know, see through the gap. So it's recommended to do that in the rule book in some situations, and it probably would look quite good. But I don't have the flat space for that. So that's essentially my take on the Expedit unit from IKEA. There are other good units from IKEA that would do the job, but this is my personal favourite one, and I do not regret the £140 plus the 30 quid that I spent on the 2 baskets to buy the thing. I just wish that I'd maybe found a second person to help me construct it time-wise, but most of the people I know have all got kids and other halves and stuff like that, and it's hard to get them out sort of like for a quick sort of couple of hours of spare time. One of the advantages of being single, I'll certainly give myself that credit. But that's my take on the IKEA Expedit unit. I hope this has been a useful video for you, and keep in touch during February because we're almost there. Co-op month's going to start, and I'm looking forward to getting all these various things like Extreme Danger, Pandemic, Ghost Stories, Eldritch Horror at the end of the month, Marvel Legendary I've got down here with the expansions. Hopefully Panic Station maybe. I've got to read the rules on that. Someone's lent me that to have a look at. And Forbidden Desert, that's going to feature it as well. So it's going to be not Arkham Horror. I will stress that because I've already spent October doing Arkham Horror. So if you want to look at what I thought of all those games and expansions, check my blog and look at the October month and you'll find every single one there. However, one thing I will do for Arkham Horror is a storage solution for the cards that I've got. As I said, I would try and do it in October, but unfortunately time got the better of me because it was quite difficult to get at least 8 Arkham Horror expansions, including the base game, done in 1 month. I mean, that nearly killed me. So, not something I'll try and do again. I mean, co-op month's already going to be quite a lengthy vendetta as it is, particularly now I'm trying to do YouTube videos. So, but I will try and get a storage solution for that done during co-op month as well, as a kind of, sorry I didn't do it earlier. And storage solutions is going to pop up every now and again anyway. I mean, after all, this is one of them. That is the whole point of this one. It is a storage solution for the board games in general. So that's generally the take of what's to come and the IKEA Expedit unit. Thank you for listening. I'm Luke Hector at the Broken Meeple, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.